Hey there, tubers. Today's video is going to be on the 800-hour review of my 2023 Bobcat CT2025 tractor. And I've owned this for about 16 months, about it brand new. And we use it primarily for maintenance around the farm, weed burning, spraying, and that such. And we've got 800 hours on it, so we put a lot of hours on it in a short period of time. Typically I use this thing about 4 months a year, so about 100 hours a month when I'm using it. And I do like this tractor. There's some things that I really like, and there's other things that I don't care for, but overall I do like the tractor. So I'll start up front here. The loader, I'd like to be able to tell you more about it, but I really don't use the loader that much, other than throwing a few rocks in here and there when we find them. I primarily use the loader part with pallet forks and moving stuff around our yard. So I haven't really gotten a chance to test the loader to see just how well it does. I do know that you get about 700 pounds on it, and that's about as much as it wants to lift. And yet, if I remember right, these things are rated at 1400 or 1600 for the lift capacity. So I've brought that up on other videos with other tractors, and then people come out of the woodwork with excuses on why it's not able to lift that much, or I'm not calculating this or that. But I'm just stating that with the pallet forks on, I can only lift about 700 pounds with this loader. Other than that, it's got the quick change on it, which I do like. That's a must-have for me. Overall, this tractor is very handy because of its size. It's compact, yet it isn't. They do make a smaller 25 horse tractor. It's 1,000 series, and those are almost like oversized lawnmowers. But when you go up to the 2,000 series, the frame, the whole stature of the tractor gets bigger. But yet, compared to their other tractors, it's smaller. So it comes in handy for getting around into tight spots. I really like the size of this. It's still beefy enough, but yet it's compact enough that you can get just about anywhere with it. I like the turning radius on this. That is one of the things that all of Bobcat's tractors they've got right, is these things turn sharp in two-wheel drive. Four-wheel drive, obviously it's not going to turn quite as sharp, but it still gets around really well. I, for the most part, haven't had many problems with this tractor. I just took it in a few weeks ago for the 800-hour overhead service, which is the manual says you need to run an overhead on it at 800 hours. When I called Bobcat and told them I wanted to bring it in for that, they questioned as to why I wanted that, and I told them it's in the manual, and they're like, well, we don't really recommend that you do the overhead unless there's something wrong with the tractor. So the dealership itself doesn't follow the manual in that regard. And they said, well, you know, we don't want to do it unless there's something wrong with this tractor. And I said, well, you know, other than it smokes pretty heavily on startup, and then when you start running it, I don't know if the camera will pick it up, but down in here everything gets carboned up. a lot of soot. So I told him, you know, that's about the only thing I could think of that might or might not be wrong with this tractor. You know, this is an emissions free tractor, so you get the old school diesel. You get to smell it and see it when it's cold, and so I've always kind of chalked it up to that. And they said, well, it's not supposed to smoke at all. So I went ahead and took it into them, and they did run an overhead on it and found that 2 valves were sticking. The injection pump timing was off, and that the intake air heater wasn't working. So I didn't realize that these tractors even had an air intake heater on them. I mean, these are a super basic tractor. Let me open the hood here and show you. There's just not much to that engine. No emissions. It's just a basic 3-cylinder diesel engine. But I guess it has a little more electronics on it than I thought. And so they adjusted the valves, fixed the timing, and then replaced that intake heater. Well, I tell you what, that made a big difference. Firing it up in the mornings, it doesn't hardly smoke at all. I still get the diesel smell if the wind's blowing right, but that's somewhat to be expected. So I guess the heater hasn't worked since this tractor was new, because this thing smoked since day one on startup. And I haven't run it enough since I got it back to know whether it's going to carbon up that side over there or not anymore. But other than that, I haven't had any problems with this tractor at all. It's been a good, reliable machine. So while I'm thinking about it, tire wear has been great on this machine. I don't, like I said, don't really use this loader for much, so it hasn't had to pack a lot of weight around, and this tractor really doesn't see pavement, so you know, I don't expect it to wear rapidly. However, my CT2025 that I have, I use that loader a lot. That tractor does see pavement now and then, and the front tires are starting to really wear on that one. So, you know, wear on this one has been great. In fact, you can still see nubbins on these rear tires. But this is a really light tractor. Even with the sprayer or the weed burner on, you know, we're not talking massive amounts of weight on this machine. So tire wear has been good. On this tractor, I added a few of the options. I put them on myself. One is linked pedal, and the other one is cruise control. And those are options you can have your dealer put on when you buy it, or you can just buy the kits and put them on yourself. I have videos showing how to do it yourself if you were interested. But one thing I don't like about this link pedal is, in the down position, the link pedal is off. So in that position, you push on the pedals, it doesn't change the engine RPMs at all. Whatever your throttle is set at, that's what the engine RPMs are. When you push this up, it takes and links the pedals with the throttle. So in that position, you push on the pedal, depending on how far you push it, it increases the engine RPMs, just like an automobile. It'd be like your gas pedal. And I like that at times, but there's times that I don't. So when it's down in the off position, this sticks out far enough that when I'm sitting in the seat or trying to get in and out of the seat, my knees hit this, which is annoying, but that's all it is annoyance. It's not detrimental in any way. It just, I would have designed this a little differently to either been, you know, a short throw between on and off and still be able to get through here instead of bringing it clear down like that. While I'm over here, obviously I had a little hydraulic leak here. One of these fittings was loose from the factory and it seeped for a while, and when I took this in for the overhead, I just had them fix that while it was in there. That's why all that dirt is on there. Another thing that I don't care for, I do and I don't. The position of this is fantastic. When you're sitting in the seat, it is a perfect position. It's very comfortable to use. I really like where this is at. But the downside is this thing is super touchy. I mean, you give it any kind of, and the hydraulics are just so quick on this, and they don't need to be. I don't know why it's set up that way, but it's very hard to do a nice, gentle lift or tilt or anything with this loader. The hydraulics are just ridiculously fast. That's a complaint. Other than that, I did add the canopy. I do like that. The 3-point seems to be, you know, good enough for what I use it for. I do not like these sway bar links at all. They're absolutely garbage. I'll tighten this up here, and then you can take a wrench and tighten that as tight as you want. It will still spin. And these things vibrate loose as you're going. And I think that's, I mean, that's something that a lot of manufacturers use as this turnbuckle style. And this isn't just a Bobcat thing, but I do not like those at all. I do wish this had adjustable lift arms for hooking stuff up, but again, this is a basic tractor. It's not going to have all the frills that some of the bigger ones have. But as for the 3-point, I'm happy with it. PTO works good. One thing I will say while I'm back here looking at the drawbar is this tractor is 25 horse, and it is not a powerhouse. 25 horse is not much at all. If you've got a small acreage and you just use it for, you know, moving little stuff around, yeah, this thing's ideal. And this thing works good for me for what I use it for. But I've tried pulling a harrow with this, and it just doesn't have the power. It just won't do it. 25 horse is very small. The 2035 and the 2040 are basically the identical tractor. They do go to an FL8 loader, which is a little heavier, but the engines on these come from the factory at 40 horse, and they derate them to 35 for the 2035 and derate them even further down to 25 for the 2025. Now the 35 and 40 have emissions on them because they're over the 26 horsepower emissions rating. So, you know, if it was up to me and you could get an emissions free tractor, I would definitely go with the higher horsepower. Like I said, it works for me for what I do with it, but I can't do really much more than what I'm doing with it just because of the limitations of the horsepower. Let's see what else is going on with this thing. Transmission's got 3-speed transmission, which is great. Most tractors this size only have 2 speeds. Now this one probably should only have 2 speeds, because when you put it into high range, unless you're on flat level ground, this thing will start bogging down, and it bogs down quick. It's just 25 horse isn't enough to warrant that high range. I mean, even high range, this tractor's slower than slow. It was not meant to go down the road very fast at all. But that's more of a horsepower issue. This is all set up the same as the 2035s and 2040s. I'm sure that's why they left the high range in on this. It's just simpler, same machine. They don't have to change anything. But high range is pretty much useless on this tractor. The hydrostat, I haven't had any trouble with it. The only thing is those pedals are sprung so heavily that if you spend more than a couple hours pushing on those pedals, your knee's gonna hurt. And that's where the cruise control kind of comes in. On these, the cruise control is just a magnet. So wherever that pedal is positioned, you turn it on, that magnet holds that pedal where it's at. Problem with that is the magnet is not strong enough to hold it if you're going over rough terrain, or just the vibration of the tractor and moving, the pedal will just slowly work its way back. So what I've ended up doing is I'll use my foot, get it to where I want it, I'll turn the cruise control on, and I'll just rest my foot on the pedal, and that kind of helps hold it there. And then that way I'm not pushing so hard with my knees to keep that pedal down. I wish Bobcat had sprung those a little lighter than they are, but that's my workaround on that. As for the emergency brake, I figured out a way of putting that on. I'll just kind of show you here. I push with one foot, I lock it in with the other. Otherwise, to reach down here, that's a pain. And then the other thing with this is, if you're moving and you're, say, on a hill or something, and you want to let off and not roll, you've almost got to bring your other foot over and hold the brake, because if you let off, move over here, there's just enough time that the tractor will roll. So I don't know that I like that system, but again, I've figured out 2 feet and I'm fine. So I'll jump back off here and I'll show you, this thing's gonna go back in and get some more work done on it, because when they did the overhead right back there, they pinched the valve cover gasket, and now it's leaking oil all over the place. So that's kind of why I decided to do this video today. Is I had to get it out so I could take it in, so I thought I'd make a quick video. Just trying to think of anything else that I can say about it. It's pretty straightforward. Like I said, there's not a lot to this tractor. It's pretty basic, but I would buy it again. I wished it did have more power. It works for the spraying and weed burning, but you're not going to get a lot more out of it. It's not a row crop tractor. I've put a corrugator on it to go pull some pasture corrugates, and the hydrostat just doesn't have the power to do that. But for what I use it for, it's great. I guess about the only other thing I can talk about is the maintenance schedule on this tractor, and it's a lot more often than I would expect. This thing is probably twice as much maintenance as my 5555, just because if you follow the owner's manual, which I do. The engine, transmission, rear end, front end, the oil change intervals are a lot more frequent than the bigger tractors. And I attribute that to maybe because these are considered small acreage, low hour operator type machines, and so they sit more than the bigger machines. Don't quote me on that, that's just my theory. But there is a lot more maintenance on this than I had anticipated. My previous tractors didn't have hardly any maintenance compared to this one. You know, and other than the timing and valve issue, which really wasn't an issue until we figured out that it was. This thing is good on fuel. I've probably averaged about 1 gallon an hour. So, you know, now that all that stuff's fixed, it might even get better than that. But it'll have to wait till next year when I start running it to find out. I did get a notice a few months ago, I think it was maybe back in June, that the factory has changed the engine oil interval from 400 to 200. So I'm guessing that they've probably had some problems with these extended intervals. 400 hours to me is too long anyway. But to cut it in half, there had to have been a reason for that. When it was in for the timing and valve adjustment, the mechanic did say that they'd been having some problems with these engines, basically because when they're derating them, and I don't know whether Bobcat's the one that's derating them or Daedong or who's doing the derating, but they're not putting the right shims in the injection pump and not getting them timed to the right horsepower. So this one was obviously off, but it didn't really affect it like you would think. I mean, this thing still burns 1 gallon an hour, which to me is fine. One thing I'll add on this front axle is the oscillation. I don't care much for it. There's not a lot of travel. As you can see, you've got just a very small gap there. So from side to side, that oscillation of that axle is not much. So if you go over anything, you know, much at all, it'll pull one of the tires off the ground. I wish it had more movement, just so you could keep traction better. I mean, you can't cross hardly anything without pulling a wheel off, which it's a good thing that this thing's got 4-wheel drive and differential lock, because otherwise you'd get stuck quite frequently. With that, that's about all I can think of right now. If you have any questions or comments, leave them below, and I'll try to get any questions you have answered as best I can. Thanks for watching.